Tishtatiya samya
Danatishtatya samya
Upayan purvadarshita
Upayam purvadarshita
Avarashadayopeta
Avarashadayopeta
Upayan pindatenjasa
Upayam vindatyasa
Danatishtatya samya
Danatishtatya samya
Upayam purvadarshita
Upayam purvadarshita
Avarashadayopeta
Avarashadayopeta
Upayam vindatyasa
Upayam vindatyasa
Danatishtatya samya
Danatishtatya samya
Upayam purvadarshita
Upayam purvadarshita Avarashadayopeta
Upayam vindatyasa
Upayam vindatyasa.
Yes, okay. Tan, those. Atishtati, follows. Ya, anyone who. Samyak, completely. Upayan, principles. Purva, formally. Darshitan, instructed. Avara, inexperienced. Shradaya, with faith. Upeta, being situated. Upayan, the fruits of activities. Vindate, enjoys. Anjasa, very easily. Translation. One who follows the principles and instructions enjoined by the great sages of the past can utilize these instructions for practical purposes. Such a person can very easily enjoy life and pleasures. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The Vedic principles, Mahajano Yena Gatasa Panta, from Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Lila, chapter 17, verse 186, urge us to follow in the footsteps of great liberated souls. In this way we can receive benefit in both this life and the next, and we can also improve our material life. By following the principles laid down by great sages and saints of the past, we can very easily understand the aim of life. The word avara, meaning inexperienced, is very significant in this verse. Every conditioned soul is inexperienced. Everyone is a bodha jata, born a fool and rascal. In democratic government at the present moment, all kinds of fools and rascals are making decisions. But what can they do? What is the result of their legislation? They enact something today just to whimsically repeal it tomorrow. One political party utilizes a country for one purpose, and the next moment another political party forms a different type of government and nullifies all the rules and regulations. This process of chewing the chewed, now please don't. This process of chewing the chewed, punapunas charvata charvananam, Srimad Bhagavatam 7.5.30, will never make human society happy. In order to make, in order to make all human society happy and prosperous, we should accept the standard methods given by liberated persons. Tanatishtati yasamyag upayan purva darshatan avara shraddhayo peta upayan vindaten jasa. One who follows the principles and instructions enjoined by the great sages of the past can utilize these instructions for practical purposes. Such a person can very easily enjoy life and pleasures. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarane Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadha Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripasindubhya Eva Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Yes, so Prithu Maharaj is milking the earth planet. Anyway, you all know the story behind that, so I don't have to repeat that. King Prithu was really not happy, just extremely unhappy with the sort of the status quo at the time. But anyway, as Prabhupada's saying here, such an important foundational principle in Krishna consciousness, we have to follow in the footsteps of the great liberated souls. Prabhupada quotes, it's the last line, in fact, of this verse from Madhya Lila of Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila chapter 17, verse 186, Tarko pratishta shutayo vibinna nasavrishya yasya matam nabinnam dharmasya tatvam nihitam guhayam mahajano yena gata sapanta. It's Lord Chaitanya speaking. It's actually a verse from Mahabharata, in fact. But it's Lord Chaitanya speaking it here. Dry arguments are inconclusive. A great personality whose opinion does not differ from others is not considered a great sage. Simply by studying the Vedas, which are variegated, one cannot come to the right path by which religious principles are understood. The solid truth of religious principles is hidden in the heart of an unadulterated, self-realized person. Consequently, as the Shastras confirm, one should accept whatever progressive path the Mahajans advocate. So, in the verse itself, of course, it's being, the principle is being stated, how beneficial it is in so many ways. Even it's, what to speak of being beneficial in different transcendental ways, but even materially, it's beneficial, can be, or it is beneficial to follow in the footsteps of the previous authorities. Or, previous authorities, or just authoritative devotees. Otherwise, if you try to sort of figure things out according to your own capacity, to figure things out, then it's basically inevitable that you're going to come to some wrong type of conclusion. Not just basically, but it's just inevitable. And that's why things are such a mess here in this material world. At the moment, Prabhupada makes some reference here to the political parties of the day. You know, we in South Africa have just had an election. If you're not aware of that, well done. It means you're a serious devotee. If you're aware of it and you didn't vote, well done. Yeah. And if you're aware of it and you voted, well, I don't know. We will pray to God to help you, or just to help. Yeah. But that's the point that's being emphasized here or stated here. We got to follow in the footsteps of the Acharyas. Otherwise, everything will become upside down. Yes, it'll become upside down, unfortunately. Such is life in the material world. But anyway, in that particular verse, the verse that Lord Chaitanya stated, let's just have a look at what he says, or Mahabharata says. Dry arguments are inconclusive. Well, yes, that's just trying to use our logic, our intelligence. I mean, it's one of the ways mentioned here of just trying to use our intelligence to understand what to do in life, what's the best path to take in life. And what is stated here is that such an approach is inconclusive. We can't really come to certainly a proper conclusion, or certainly can't come to the right conclusion. And you know, when trying to do something, anything, basically, drive a car, operate a camera, a computer, or just run a temple or cook an offering, generally speaking, there's pretty much one way to do it properly. I mean, there can be a bit of flexibility, but one type of way to do it properly, but there are usually many ways of doing it wrongly. Yeah, usually there are many ways of doing it wrongly. I remember when my mother taught me how to drive, would you believe? I was 13 years old, and she put me in this car, one of our family cars, and said, yes, you put your foot on the clutch, okay, got that. Put it into gear, got that. Take your foot off the clutch. The car almost leapt up. It sort of leapt forward and stopped, and the engine stalled, because you've got to let the clutch out slowly, carefully, which, you know, it doesn't take so long to get once you've learnt it, but until you've learnt it. Yes, so in so many things, like operating a computer or operating cameras, then there are many ways you can do it wrong, but usually just limited ways that you can do it sort of acceptably, or what to speak of, like really correctly and nicely. So therefore, dry arguments, whatever comes out of our heads, just attempting to argue and so on, you don't get a very good conclusion. It's unlikely you'll get a good conclusion. And then the second point is, nasav rishier yasya matam na binam. Na binam means not different, or not separate, not different. A great personality whose opinion does not differ from others is not considered a great sage. Prabhupada addresses this point elsewhere a number of times, that in spiritual circles you get these people who are called Munis. Of course there's Narada Muni, but he's different. But you got people like Devasa Muni. And in order to become recognized as a qualified Muni, like to be taken seriously as a Muni, you have to come up with an opinion on whatever the subject is. Often it's spiritual, sometimes it's material. You have to come up with an opinion which differs from the opinions of all the others, and even particularly the latest one whose opinion was considered to be very good and so may have been accepted. I mean, he may have been accepted as the leading Muni, at least for the time being, but for you to be considered as a Muni and for people to address you like that, you have to come up with a better opinion than his, and they have to accept it, that yes, you've established your point and basically defeated the others. Or at least you've made a good point which is different from the others. Yeah. So otherwise you can't be accepted as a Muni or like a good thinker. And then even, what is it? Anyway, Shrutayo Vibhinna. Shrutayo means the Vedas. Vibhinna, different. Yeah, Matam Binam we read. Got to have a different opinion. This is Vibhinna. There are different departments in the Vedas. So simply by studying the Vedas, which are variegated, one cannot come to the right path by which religious principles are understood. Even we find it amongst devotees that there's some controversial subject arises, or some subject becomes controversial, and now devotees are expressing their different opinions on the subject within Krishna consciousness. And of course, in so many cases at least, they will quote from Srila Prabhupada or Shastra. Some of them quote from Vedic literatures, but Vedic literatures which Srila Prabhupada did not focus on. And so it all becomes sort of cloudy. And in many cases, they don't actually come to a conclusion, but the discussion sort of dies down, and the people with their different opinions, they just sort of, cool down and stick with their opinions. But there's nothing conclusive which has come out where everyone participating will say, yes, right, that's it. And so there's an acceptance of a particular understanding of the subject. And what to speak of like amongst the Mayavadis and people like that, people who are expert or you could say expert or highly practiced in word jugglery. Of course, we don't really, none of us, or at least amongst our ISKCON devotees, there are very few who understand Sanskrit, like fairly pretty well as we might understand our mother tongue or if we have a second language, we might understand the second language. And I remember many years ago when Giriraj Maharaj was active here regularly, I had somehow or other got the idea of teaching a course of Sanskrit to the devotees. I mean, I understand a little. It's really not much at all, but a little. So I suggested to him, do you think it would be okay if I taught the devotees a course in Sanskrit? And Maharaj thought a little and said, I don't think it's a good idea. And he expressed because devotees might get too into these things and get distracted, and rather than just accept what is appearing in our books, they might start coming up with other interpretations, and it might not be good for the devotees. So I never taught a course in Sanskrit. You may have noticed or not noticed. So so these three approaches, like popular, well-known approaches and widely practiced approaches to understanding, particularly like in case of the case of the verse today, like how to live in the broad sense, how we should live our lives. Yes, so Lord Chaitanya, and from Mahabharata, says, the solid truth of religious principles is hidden in the heart of an unadulterated, self-realized person. Consequently, as the Shastras confirm, one should accept whatever progressive path the Mahajans advocate. And of course, Srila Prabhupada is our Mahajan. He really is. His Holiness Krishna Das Maharaj, I mean, from time to time, he would declare boldly in his classes that Srila Prabhupada is the 13th, right? 13th Mahajan. And I mean, it's nice. It's very nice. Because particularly for us and people in the modern age, it's really true. Much more than, like specifically focusing on any of the traditional Mahajans in the list, where, we may not have much access to them. Or like I'm preparing the 6th canto for Bhakti Vaibhava just right these very days. And so having gone through the Ajamial pastime, the Yamadutas who have been trained and educated by Yamaraj, suddenly they encounter the Vishnu Dutas. And what do? The Yamadutas. The Vishnu Dutas ask them, tell us what you're doing. Explain according to Shastra. What principles of Dharma are you applying here? And the Yamadutas, very confidently, they start relating different philosophical points which they've learnt from Yamaraj, because they've been educated, specifically educated in Shastra by Yamaraj. And actually they even mention Lord Vishnu a bit. But basically the point is they're repeating what they've heard from Yamaraj. And then the Vishnu Dutas totally defeat them and release Ajamiel, and the Yamadutas are just left bewildered, actually. And they go back to Yamaraj And Prabhupada explains there, there's a whole discussion between them and Yamaraj, and they basically accuse him. What have you been telling us? And Prabhupada says they have become angry with Yamaraj because they feel they've been misled by Yamaraj. Although the points they make, if you read through it, or if you're following our Bhakti Vaibhava course in a couple of years when we get to the 6th canto, you'll see they make good points according to, a general sense of Dharma. But the Vishnudutas just sort of devastate them. And anyway, then Yamaraj has to say, well, actually, he's been instructing them. It's sort of, as happens sometimes, in circumstantial ways, under certain circumstances. In that particular case, someone who's simply a sinful person with no redeeming qualities at all, then you have to bring them to me for punishment. And there are all sorts of considerations which they explain in that regard. But now, so it's conditional on the person being, like strictly speaking, just sinful. But then what the Vishnudutas have explained to them, and Yamaraj confirms, is that Ajamil, he was not in that category. I mean, he had been in that category. It appeared that he was in that category, but now he was not in that category simply because he had been chanting the name Narayan, even though he was just addressing his son. But it had been going on, of course. Narayan was maybe several years old, or maybe 5 years old, but something like that. Very young. So for however many years it was, Ajamil had been addressing his son Narayan just repeatedly every day. And there's a whole explanation right at the end of, I think it's the 2nd chapter, it was either the 1st or the 2nd, of the 6th canto. Prabhupada refers to Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, the questions raised. When did Ajamil become liberated or delivered, freed from all his sinful reactions? Was it just now, when he, at the time of death, or he didn't actually die at that time, but he was on the edge, at that time when he just called out desperately? Or when was it? And the point made is that it was the first time, that he, maybe like the day they decided, we will call this one Narayan. That was it. He was delivered. And the examples given of when you plant the seed of a fig tree, I mean, you could say any fruit-bearing tree, but the example is of a fig tree is given. Then as soon as you plant the seed, it's just a matter of time before the figs come, the fruit comes. Generally, hopefully. But usually that's the way it works. You just plant the seed and wait. And then the fruit comes. Takes a while, but the fruit comes. But you could say that the whole process, the process is we want the fruit, but the whole process is assured from when you plant the seed. It's like it's done the deal is done and completed. Now you just got to wait. So anyway, that's all very interesting. And the Yamadutas, they didn't know about that because they'd only been educated in how to deal with people who are just really genuinely sinful people, and not people who have become devotees, or anyway, like a Jamil, who's had the spiritual practice and been liberated therefore. So anyway, yes, here in this verse, it's a very nice verse, that one who follows the principles and instructions enjoined by the great sages of the past can utilize these instructions for practical purposes. Such a person could very easily enjoy life and pleasures. And Prabhupada, of course, in the purport, the point is made that we're urged to follow in the footsteps of the great liberated souls. In this way we get benefit in this life and the next. And we can also improve our material life. Here we are, we're all practicing Krishna consciousness, the great majority, for many years. And, well, I mean, I can say just for myself, and I assume it applies to you, at least so many of you, that my life has improved materially. It really has improved materially. Gosh, it's so much better than it was. You know, I don't think many of you went through like the whole Western hippie way. I did. And at the end of that, I was not a happy chappy at all. Gee whiz. Talk about Prabhupada saved me. So my life just in all respects is really a lot better. And I'm sure in the cases of many of you, maybe all of you, it's the case too. Just in all respects, including materially. And that's Krishna consciousness, and that's Krishna. He is the Lord not just of the spiritual world, but of the material world also. And Prabhupada, of course, examines the situation here in the material world. Everyone's inexperienced. All the conditioned souls are inexperienced. People who are inexperienced, you know, when they have to do something, like particularly something complex or something like that, someone who's inexperienced, it's almost inevitable they'll make many mistakes before they get it right. Yeah. So everyone is a Bodha Jata. Jata means born. A Bodha Jata. Everyone's born a fool and rascal. Prabhupada uses this sort of language sometimes. Very, very strong. I mean, you know, look, and he refers to government. All kinds of fools and rascals are making decisions. Anyway, let's not get into the politics, but you know about load shedding, don't you? Anyway, Hare Krishna. Don't report me. But yeah. And now they're going to make some other arrangement because they're forced to. And what are the predictions of what the results are going to be? Like in America, in England, they're having elections in a month or less than a month. Hare Krishna. We do not expect the results to really be, particularly in the long term, that the results are really going to be beneficial, what to speak of spiritually, of course, but even materially. Yeah. One group, one party makes certain laws, And after a while, inevitably they lose, and the other party comes in and reverses a number of those rules. Yeah. That's going on. It's all just foolishness, actually, unfortunately. The process of chewing the chewed. Punapunas charvata charvana nam. Prabhupada refers to that verse. Let me just look it up. 7:5:30. Sri Prarad Uvacha. Materna Krishne Paratasvatova. Mato Bipadyeta Grihavratanam. Adanta Gobir Vishatam Tamishram. Punapunas charvata charvananam. Prahlad Maharaj replied, because of their uncontrolled senses, persons too addicted to materialistic life. I mean, it's one thing to be addicted or sort of, have attachments. I mean, that can be challenging enough. But someone who's too addicted to materialistic life, persons like that, they make progress towards hellish conditions and repeatedly chew that which has already been chewed. Like, drumsticks? You know drumsticks, right? They're quite pleasant. They're nice to a point. But after a while you have to spit them out. I don't know if any of you eat the whole thing. I wouldn't expect it. Yeah. But you can imagine, I haven't chewed chewing gum since I was a child, and I hardly did it then, but if you've chewed chewing gum, you know what it's like. You chew away the sugary coating, and then, it's just like chewing rubber or something. So for these people who are into that sort of life, their inclinations toward Krishna are never aroused, either by the instructions of others, by their own efforts, or by a combination of both. It's just a formula for just like a ridiculous situation, very unfortunate situation. So in order to make all human society happy and prosperous, we should accept the standard methods given by liberated persons. When I first joined the temple many years ago, Prabhupada was, active and physically, and from time to time he'd make this point that without Krishna consciousness, like for everyone, including the government, without government on the basis of Krishna consciousness, it'll just fail. It's just different ways of failing. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. But, as time has gone on, it becomes more clear that actually it's really like that. I mean, how many ways do we want to fail? Set a world record for different ways of failing, successfully failing, so to speak. But it's really a fact. And when you read Prabhupada or hear Prabhupada speak and make this point, this type of point, then you feel his conviction. You feel his conviction. He's so deeply convinced. It's just a fact. It's a sunny day. It's just a fact. And his conviction is like that. He's talking about reality and not just an opinion or a hope or something like that. So anyway, we have to keep sort of plugging on, trying to push on the Krishna consciousness movement, following his instructions, and just do it as much as we're able, which, however much that may be. But we shouldn't become disappointed if, we're not so successful, not so quickly successful. actually, you can say, and some devotees say that we are changing the world. We're just changing the world one person at a time. Yeah, because they have to actually become devotees. You know, not just like in a big crowded situation, you can get everyone chant Hare Krishna, and everyone may chant Hare Krishna, but whether they have actually really become devotees, you know, that may be another thing altogether. I mean, not that we should not do it like that, but that's just, it seems to be the reality. So we shouldn't be disappointed, but we should carry on presenting Krishna consciousness as it is. And you know, there's some flexibility to some degree in presenting the philosophy to different types of people and the practices to different types of people. But essentially, Mahajano Yena Gata Sapanta, we have to follow in the footsteps of particularly our Mahajan, who's Srila Prabhupada. Yeah. And who knows if much change will take place in any of our lifetimes. Yeah, we'll see. but we have to carry on, following in the footsteps. Hare Krishna. Any comments or questions? Words of wisdom? Jai Prabhu.
Thank you very much for the insightful class. Earlier you mentioned about Munis, the very influential.
Right, Munis, yeah.
What if they use the position and they kind of independently act and change some of the Shruti and Smriti, like yesterday I did a class on the first 3 verses. And Prabhupada quotes Rupa Goswami from the Nectar Structure, Devotion, Shruti Smriti Punadadi, how they can cause a disturbance in society, misconstrue these words. Then I gave the story of 922 Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna says, I preserve it. Then I remember Burijan Prabhu Sarana to me in his overview of Bhagavad Gita. And he quotes the story of, I never forget to quote me, Yamunacharya, Brahmana, this Brahmana who altered the words.
Yeah. The way
Arjuna
Arjunacharya, the way Prabhupada pronounces it as the devotees, because it's in the folio.
Yeah.
It's in the folio.
So it's Arjuna Charya.
Well, that's the way it's put there. Yeah.
So yeah.
I don't know if it was Yamunacharya.
Yeah, then he was looking at the way and he said, no, why should we give Krishna the burden of maintaining or preserving? He altered it. I have it done. And then the story goes, he goes to the marketplace and then just as he goes, 2 boys come rushing in with lots of bogart
Right.
to the wife of the Brahmin, and they seem very scared and she inquires from them why. He said, no, your master is beaten us. And he showed the marks on his back, and she was totally disgusted. And she waited for her husband to come back, and she was chastising him. And she described these 2 boys. One was dark and one was very fair. And he understood that was Krishna and Balaram, and he remembered he had altered those words.
This is a comment, is it?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, good. Thank you. Yes, right. Yeah, that story's there of, it's the way it's written in the folio, and I didn't think about it, I just accepted it. It says Arjunacharya. Maybe it was Yamunacharya. I don't know if Yamunacharya was a householder at some point. Maybe he was. But anyway, I imagine the recording is available. I would say we could listen to it and see what it sounds like ourselves. But yeah, he changed. In fact, he used a blade because they didn't have, you couldn't backspace your computer in those days. They didn't have a backspace or a delete function. And they didn't, couldn't use a rubber for a pencil or even Tipex. You had to actually take a blade and cut it physically off the page, which was usually some bark, which is thick. So he did that. And then, Krishna and Balaram came, although the wife didn't know who they were. And then Krishna showed the cuts on his back. And your husband did this. And then he came back, the husband, and his wife told them about this. And he's thinking, what? I didn't meet any two boys. I never hit anyone. What's going on? And he looked at the page which was there, because he had just been working on that page. And he saw how he had cut the word Vahami out and put Karomi. Vahami means I carry and deliver, like that, and Karomi means I do or I make it done, get it done. Because that's what he had been saying, that someone had changed it. It should have been Karomi, that Krishna says, I cause it to happen. That, whatever my devotee requires, devotee gets. I cause it to happen. And not that I personally carry it and deliver it. So then his eyes fell on the page and saw we'd cut out Vahami and written in Karomi, his own speculation. And then he realized, wow, it was Krishna. So he offered obeisances to his wife. I don't know how much that is practiced in ISKCON, husband and wife offering obeisances to each other. Anyway, I don't know. But he offered obeisances to his wife and went running into the town, shouting, Vahami, Vahami, Vahami. And everyone thought, what happened to him? Yeah. But he was so moved by the whole experience. My wife is such a great devotee. Krishna appeared to her in person and spoke with her. Sure, he never did that with me. Anyway, thank you. Not a good idea to change things. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Disciple of Gopal Krishna Maharaj.
Oh, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
I'm having a very difficult time
Okay.
with Guru Maharaj having left on the 5th of May. We were expecting to see him in Vancouver
Oh.
this summer.
Uh-huh.
And, I don't know, Maharaj. Everybody tells me that the Vani is more important than the Bapu. And Guru Maharaj himself said this to me.
Sure.
But Maharaj, I just don't have the same enthusiasm. I'm
Right.
just feeling it very difficult.
Are you living here or living
I'm
there?
in Canada, Maharaj.
Are you living there? You're
I'm
just
just visiting.
visiting. Well, yes, it's not